for integrity. We are Splash. 105.5 FM.
105.5, The Splash.
This is Splash 105.5 FM, your integrity station, and we're happy that you could be there with us on this frequency of choice. Thank you for joining us. I'm Oluwaseun Omakinola, and today on the program, I'll be looking at different issues concerning the economy. The most salient issue around our economy today is how the federal government has secured $800 million from the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, also known as the World Bank, to provide post-petroleum subsidy palliatives for over 50 million Nigerians ahead of June 2023. Now, one issue around that news was that they simply said Nigeria has secured $800 million. I'll play what Zainab Ahmed said when they finished Federal Executive Council. I'll play that this morning. Nobody said it was a loan. I was looking at the World Bank document, and that $800 million is a loan. Why didn't you use the word loan, to describe it? It is not a grant. Maybe you can call it a grant to those who will receive it eventually, but it's a loan. And I have a lot of questions about it. Why do we love to throw money at issues in Nigeria? I know some people are quick to say, don't they give welfare packages to people outside of the country, in European countries? But the truth is, those are sustainable welfare packages that have been sustained over the years in their national budgets. But this one is called palliatives, and the only thing that we know how to do best is to throw money in envelopes to people. First, what is the integrity of Nigeria's social register? What is the proportion of this group, the 10 million households that the register said about 50 million Nigerians? What's the percentage of these people if you consider the 133 million people who are multidimensionally poor in Nigeria today? And so, the National Social Register is a repository of information about potential beneficiaries for multiple social assistance programs that share a common population of interest, but not necessarily some eligibility approach. Now, have we considered the social and economic cost of the removal of subsidy? The complete regulation of the downstream oil sector, the PIA, the medium-term framework for the budget. Will the new administration be able to take this bull by the horns from the outset of the administration? The Sure P that was initiated in 2012, it was a form of palliative. We tried it. But what did we bring out of Sure P? Even that. And all of these are issues that we need to think about. According to Zainab Ahmed, the $800 million forms for the first tranche of palliatives are ready to be disbursed to 10 million households in form of cash transfer. But there's a provision of the Petroleum Industry Act that says 18 months after the effectiveness of the PIA that all petroleum products must be deregulated. And that 18 months takes us to June 2023. She said, when we were working on the 2023 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and the Appropriation Act, the nation made that provision to enable Nigeria exit fuel subsidy by June 2023. And so we'll look at all of these issues this morning on the program. I'll go to the news items in a moment. A momentary break right now. Thank you for being there. Now, let's quickly look at the news item. Nigeria's Senate has adopted a report of its Committee on Public Accounts, which specifically focused on Auditor General reports of 2016 and indicted the Nigerian National Petroleum Company for 102 billion naira in crude oil irregularities. In the report, queries raised against 37 ministries, departments, and agencies, MDAs, by the Office of the Federation's Auditor General were sustained, while those against 43 others were vacated. Among the indicted MDAs is the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, over its failure to provide details of crude oil delivered to Warri and Kaduna refineries worth about $376.6 million. That is 102.6 billion naira. In the audited year, the Senate upheld the recommendation of its committee asking NNPC Group Managing Director Mele Kyari to provide specific details of crude delivered to the two refineries for audit. The commercial bank's deposits with the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, Standing Deposit Facility, SDF, have dropped by 95.82% in less than 2 months due to the cash crunch brought on by the government's narrow design policy. CBN data shows that banks' deposit dropped 4.69 billion as of 4th April 2023 from 112.24 billion naira on 10th February 2023. The extended timeline for the return of the naira notes, and that is something that you need to understand about Nigeria right now. So I'm looking at the FDI in Nigeria for 2023, and the figures are not looking very good in any way. Nigeria Foreign Direct Investment 2023 data is saying that Nigeria is not getting as much as foreign direct investment as we should get it. That is dropping compared to what we have in 2022. Now, talking about banking sector, and business conditions contracted for the second consecutive time in March 2023. This report says that deposits in banks have dropped. And here is the story. Commercial banks' deposits with the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, Standing Deposit Facility, called SDF, have dropped by 95.82%. In other words, Nigerians are not taking their money to the bank again. That's one big issue right now. And so the deposits dropped 95.82% in less than 2 months. Okay, so that's the news for me. I'll go into the issue of $800 million palliative right away. Let's listen to what Zainab Ahmed had to say about this $800 million.
Made that provision to enable us exit fuel subsidy by June 2023. We're on course. We're having different stakeholder engagements. We've secured some funding from the World Bank. That is the first tranche of palliatives that will be that will enable us to give cash transfers to the most vulnerable in our society.
All right, so you heard her that she said the money is meant for the vulnerable in our society. So you think about the issues around it, and I want us to be critical as we think about these issues moving around it. I was asking several questions earlier. First is the integrity of this register. This register has been contested over time. A number of people have contested this particular register, saying that why do we think that only these people are eligible? That they're the only one eligible for this money or for palliatives. Can we look at it again and see how many people should be given this kind of money? Now, NECA was talking yesterday about this $800 million. And so NECA said the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA, has called on the federal government to prioritize fixing the country's comatose refineries instead of the proposed sharing of $800 million World Bank support for the removal of subsidy on petrol to 10 million households, the amount given to them. This call was contained in a statement titled Fuel Subsidy Removal. NECA urges a more fundamental action that was issued by Director General of NECA, Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde. The association stressed that fixing the country's refineries was the most important palliative the government could provide to Nigerians. Oyerinde stated that while NECA supports the removal of the fuel subsidy and also commended the support of the World Bank, it believed that government should not shy away from the fundamental issues, which included the fixing of the refineries as a precondition for the removal of the subsidy. He added, therefore, it makes no economic sense to inject cash in the form of palliatives into an economy that is already beset with unending inflationary pressures. Now, the same government that said we have too much of cash in circulation, that we drew over 70% of our cash into custody of the Central Bank, is planning to inject cash back into that economy. How do you understand the thinking of this government? How do you analyze the thinking of this particular government, if indeed they are sincere about the way they analyze issues? Anyway, Dr. Yemi Kale is the one that was in charge of our NBS, Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, before. Now he's a director at a financial organization right now, KPMG actually. Yemi Kale talked about the removal of subsidy. I'd like you to listen to what Kale said about subsidy.
Ìfẹ́ mi, ẹni lọ́jọ́ ìfúnni lábẹ́rẹ́ wa. Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni, pẹ̀lú abẹ́rẹ́ aládàágún fún ìdáàbòbò ara ẹni yìí, a lè ṣeré ìfẹ́ fóṣù mẹ́ta láìsí fòyè oyún àìròtẹ́lẹ̀.
Bí báwo?
Màá fa ẹran itan mi, màá sì gábẹ́rẹ́ yìí sórí itan tí mo fà. Káde máa gbádùn ara wa lọ fóṣù mẹ́ta nìyẹn.
Abẹ́rẹ́ kẹ̀, ṣé èèyàn wà nínú ẹ̀?
Kò séwu ìfẹ́ mi. Abẹ́rẹ́ tíntínní ni bí eléyìí.
Àkíkà, ó ti gun kódà ó mìíràn rárá.
Ṣé bí mo sọ fún ẹ?
Bó bá fẹ́ lábẹ́rẹ́ aládàágún fúngbà àkọ́kọ́, lọ́dọ̀ ṣiṣẹ́ ìlera fúngbà ní níyànjú. Fàlàyé nípa àwọn ọ̀nà mìíràn láti bọ́ lọ́wọ́ oyún àìròtẹ́lẹ̀. Tẹ ẹ̀rìn èjì ọ̀kan lọ́fẹ̀ẹ́ lórí Airtel. Kó o dẹ̀ tẹ ọgbọ̀n tàbí kó o lọ sórí ẹ̀rọ ayélujára discoveryourpower.org. Ìpolówó yìí wá látọwọ́ àwọn ẹgbẹ́ tó ń bójútó ìlera ẹbí, Society for Family Health, pẹ̀lú iléeṣẹ́ ìjọba àpapọ̀ tó ń bójútó ètò ìlera.
Fífi ẹsẹ̀ lásán rìn lórí ìkoríko lójoojúmọ́ dára fún ọ. Torí pé gẹ́gẹ́ bí ẹ̀dá èèyàn, ó ṣe pàtàkì fún wa láti súnmọ́ ìṣẹ̀dá. mímọ ìtara oòrùn láwọ̀ ara rẹ àti bí atẹ́gùn ṣe ń súfèé létí rẹ ìjọnilójú gbáà ni. Nítorí pé mò ń pín pẹ̀lú ìṣẹ̀dá sì ń gbénú mi. Mo nílò mílíìkì tó kún fún dídára ìṣaralóore láti ṣagbátẹrù ìgbé ayé mi. Mílíìkì ọ̀hún ni Coast Milk. Torí náà, tẹ̀síwájú láti máa jẹ̀gbádùn ìrètí Coast Milk lónìí.
Coast Milk. It's in our nature.
My people, no let new naira and cashless matter worry you. Hope Bank dey your phone, 500 naira awoof day. So if you want send mama money, abi to buy Amaka recharge card, to give customer money, abi customer wan give you money.
Hope dey your phone, 500 naira awoof day.
My people, your phone number na ATM card and account number oh.
Yes so, enjoy better life with Hope Wallet. Dial *569*9# on your phone. Select Open Wallet. Put your details and fiam, your wallet does set. Hope PS Bank go sama you 500 naira awoof. Terms and conditions dey oh. Hope, succeed. Hope Bank always.
In Ramadan, we are all connected. We all have the same empathy towards one another. We all feel the same rush to catch that moment of iftar and walk into the same special home-cooked meals. Every Ramadan, we are one when we fast, but not always when we break fast. This Ramadan, let's be one when sharing iftar. Sharing makes us one. Coca-Cola, real wonder.
AXA Mansard. AXA Mansard. They care about my mental health, fitness and healthcare. Good nutrition, healthy living means a lot to them. That's why I chill with peace of mind. No worries anytime. Cause when I look back, I know AXA Mansard's got my back, yeah. So what are you waiting for? Sign up and join the squad.
Enjoy more wellness for less with AXA Mansard individual, family or corporate health plans. Visit www.axamansard.com or call 0700 AXA Mansard to get started now.
More wellness for less, so yeah. Who get your must, yeah. AXA Mansard. Mama, papa, brother, sister, who no, who get your must,
This is what goodness tastes like. Golden caramel, creamy buttermint, and rich coffee. There's a Cadbury candy for every moment.
Introducing Cadbury Caramel Candy, Cadbury Coffee, and your favorite Cadbury Buttermint candies. Now there's lots more to share and enjoy.
Oh yeah, there's a Cadbury candy for every moment.
Oh yo yo! Now God dey dash pikin to mama and papa dem o, and na so God dash breast milk to pikin dem. Breast milk get all the better things wey good for your pikin, plus water. So therefore, give your pikin only breast milk for the first 6 months. No forget o, give your pikin breast milk only for the first 6 months. This message na from Henry Project, Oyo State Ministry of Health.
So special to us, golden morn. So special to us. I cannot go a day without this goodness in a bowl, giving energy to make it stay golden. Golden morn. So special to us.
Splash FM 105.5.
Thank you for being there with us on Splash 105.5. Your integrity station, Barcelona Economic Searchlight. Apologies that you didn't get to hear the sound, so we had to go on a break. Yemi Kale is a partner and chief economist, KPMG Nigeria. A chief economist leads the firm's view on macroeconomics and enhances a growth agenda by both supporting and originating engagements involving economic modeling and econometrics. Yemi also responsible for leading the firm's research team. So on this one, he was speaking about the removal of subsidy, and he looked at different issues concerning these particular policy. Let's listen to what Yemi says about the removal of subsidy.
The way I like to approach such matters, particularly sensitive policy decisions, is to approach it from a purely technical point of view.
Okay.
On emotional, without the sound bites and so on, and look at what is, and I think that's the way the conversation Nigeria has to have. Look at this thing from a purely technical point of view and determine what is overall best for the country. Undeniably, removing subsidy has significant economic costs. It has significant social costs. But keeping subsidy also has significant economic costs, has significant social costs, even environmental costs. So I don't like to look at these things by focusing on all the positives, like those that want to remove subsidy would do, and ignore or play down the negatives, or those that don't want subsidy removed focus on all the negatives. I prefer looking at the whole, in a holistic approach, look at the entire system and then determine what is overall best for the country. Because any policy, including this one, will have positives, it will have negatives. Some people will benefit and some people would lose out from the policy. At the end of the day, it's the cost-benefit analysis to determine overall what is best for the economy. And for those that are going to lose, how can the government introduce palliatives to minimize the effects, the negative effects of that policy? I think that's what the conversation we have to have. Let's be honest. I think we are getting to a point, if we're not already there, that the conversation will not even be about should we remove subsidy. It will be subsidy has to be removed because we just can't pay for it any longer.
Right.
I'll prefer that before we get there, we can actually discuss this so that the process of moving subsidies is well communicated and maybe in a well phased approach. The truth of the entire thing is you and I benefit more from the subsidy than the poor that we like to say that we are thinking about. Because your consumption of fuel is a lot more, from going from point A to B in your car on your own is probably a lot higher than a poor man in a taxi with 5 people or in a bus with 20 people. Going from that same point A to point B, his consumption per capita is a lot less. That's not saying that the impact is not going to be more on him. When you have a subsidy regime that I think for 2020, for 6 months in 2023, is higher than your budget for health, for education and infrastructure combined, then you have to ask yourself if that is the best way, and that's the conversation we have in the country, if that's the best way. Using your, the person that sent you the messages example, his fares are real.
Right.
However, I can also argue that, well, if government doesn't have enough resources to pay for teachers or to pay them well, and teachers don't come to school at all, or they don't have enough resources to teach students, then the argument of, oh, we are worried that the child might not be able to pay transportation costs to come to school completely doesn't matter anymore because the teachers are not even in the classroom. So again, you have to look at everything in a holistic way and stop focusing only on positives or only on negatives.
That was Dr. Yemi Kale, analyzing the issue around fuel subsidy. So Nigeria would have to bite the bullet, and that's my own way of describing it. But how are we going to bite the bullet? And in biting that bullet, what will happen to the people? These people in government have buffers around them. I hope you know they don't need the palliatives. Nigeria even feeds some of them. Nigeria clothes them. Nigeria fuel their cars. Nigeria is responsible for their day-to-day cost of living. But for those of us who are going to work our fingers to the bones, those of us who will have to feed our children by the dint of our hard work, those of us who will have to cut down on the kind of food that we eat because we want to buy fuel for our cars or we want to pay transportation for our children, I want us to think about this thing in a very real way. If you have 2 kids that go to school every day of the week and you spend 250 naira for their transportation right now, when they return to school and we remove the first subsidy, you might be paying up to about 750 naira, or 600 naira for their transportation, multiplied by 5 times in a week, multiplied by 4 times of that in a month. And how much is that going to impact your income when your income is not increased with the same proportion? And so your purchasing power goes down. If you used to buy half bag of rice, you might resort to buy a quarter bag of a rice right now because of your income and the inflation that will eat into it. Yemi Kale talked about our inflation, and he said a whole lot concerning what inflation is doing to our economy. He talked also about the issue of national debt in Nigeria. Now, how do we push down inflation? Let's look at what Yemi Kale said about pushing down inflation.
How you take down your inflation will be determined by what is causing the inflation in the first place. And inflation is either caused, as you know, by demand pull factors or by cost push factors. I believe that it is probably more cost push factors in Nigeria, but cost push factors are not things that you can do. They are not short-term measures. They are things involving the cost of production, infrastructure deficits, cost of inputs, cost of financing, things of that nature. I think it's a combination of both. Now, on the demand pull side, the argument is too much cash chasing
too few goods.
Yeah. We have to be very, but there are 2 sides of the equation. There's cash and there's output. We have to be sure that the problem is excessive cash. It's supposed to be excess cash. I have too much money, I'm just buying things I don't need. But if it is a situation where it is output, so let me give you a very simple example. I need to buy 5 bottles of water to feed the 5 members in my family. I go to the market, I only see 3 bottles of water. Sure. The price goes up.
Right.
Now, I don't have excess cash. I'm going to use the same amount of money to buy, and maybe because the price goes up, I can buy only 2. So I'm going to buy 2 bottles of water to feed my 5 children in the house. I don't have excess cash. I just can't. So that issue is not trying to pull my cash. It should be trying to pull my cash out of the system, because my cash is not causing the problem. It's the lack of output causing the problem. So even in the demand pool, what we do most of the time, we try and pull out cash from the system. We have to be sure that that's what's creating the problem, excess cash. I don't think that's excess cash. I think it's usually, most of it, in Nigeria's case, is largely an output problem. You have to ramp up output, because food inflation, which is usually what is more of a bigger challenge for the poor. I don't think the poor have excess, and that's what is driving inflation. So it's more of an output issue. On the cost push side, I don't really think there's much monetary policy can do about that. It's just about long-term development plans, improve your ease of doing business, fix infrastructure, fix security. Anything that pushes up cost of production and distribution is going to keep inflation high, regardless of what you do in terms of pulling cash out of the system.
Okay, so we'll be going towards the end of this part of the program as I look at what he said concerning the national debt and the multidimensional poverty in Nigeria. Let's quickly take a look at that. What he said about the national debt and multidimensional poverty.
Well, they always say debt is not the problem, but the ability to pay the debt is always the problem.
Yeah.
We have significant problems paying our debt, and that's when people, like the Minister of Finance, say we don't have a debt problem. People get upset, but I understand what she means.
Yeah.
If the debt to GDP is low, means there's a lot of revenue in GDP that is not being collected. That's why your debt to GDP is low.
Right.
So if your debt to GDP is low and your debt to revenue is high, it's because you're not collecting enough revenue from that GDP that you have. And that's largely because the informal sector, which is about 40% of the economy, is more or less not paying tax directly to government. let's look at use Lagos as an example. Yeah. 60, almost 70% of Lagos's and has the biggest IGR comes from pay as you earn. That's because there's a system to pull that money out automatically. But you gotta look at their assessments. That was what self-employed people say they owe in taxes. It's one of the smallest components of their total IGR. And this is despite the fact that that sector is 40% of the economy.
The economy, right.
So clearly there's a lot of money in that area that you can pull out. And if you do that, your debt to GDP ratio will go up and your debt to revenue ratios will improve. But the problem is there's a lot of untaxed and a lot of revenue out there that the government is unable to pull in.
Wow.
Well, first of all, we have to understand that multidimensional poverty is not, is different from income poverty. Income poverty is just focusing on dollar a day and whether you have absolute poverty, whether you have enough money to buy a minimum amount of goods and services to consume. Multidimensional poverty is more of a development indicator because it includes, in addition to income poverty, health, education, security, and all those other things. If you want to bring down, and you start with economic growth. Economic growth on its own is not going to bring back poverty. But the idea is as the economy is growing, it means that people are getting richer because economy is growing means businesses are producing more goods and services because there's a demand for it. And if there's an increase in demand for it because people are getting richer. And if people are getting richer, that's obviously improving poverty. By the way, that depends on the distribution of, if that increase in income and increase in growth is being equitably distributed. If only a few people are benefiting from that increase in income,